Hello, Hearts of Iron 3 fans, Black Ice fans. This is Gamer 1745 here, of course. And I made this little infographic, and this is mostly a video about, I'm posting it so you can find it over on the Black Ice forum to keep handy as you play. And so I'll have a link below to this post. So if you want to get this, great. If that's all you're interested in, you can go now. I will talk a little bit about the economics and these conditions here and my thoughts on them for a few minutes. Hopefully, keep it short. I know I can go long at times. But before I get into that, of course, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't, and I don't know if you've got other questions, want other infographic, please post below. I will try to do my best. Sometimes I forget about things, but try to my best to do that. Okay, the German economical crisis. I don't know where they came up with economical, but economical means, at least as I understand the word, how to do something with economic efficiency, where I would call it, this is BS, German economic crisis. All right, okay, how to avoid it. Keep your total modified ICs in 1936 below 400, in 1937 below 480, in 1938 below 650, in 1939 below 650, 1940 and beyond. There is no limit. There is none as a limit. Now, once you get any one of this, or this, and there's 3 levels of each of these are the same in these 2 years, but just wanted to be. Once you get the penalties, they do not remove. So either go back to an earlier save or live with them until how to get removal. So I've looked at the code is control Paris and London, or control Moscow, Stalingrad, Leningrad. So you have to control both of those or all 3 of those. Then there will be a decision that will come up that will allow you to remove the economic crisis. So that is the basic of it. Now, if you get the first one in the first year, you get, just looking here, dissent and reduction in ruling party support. And again, there's 3 levels that get worse, and worse in that year. In 1937, if you get the second one, it will be global revolt risk up, and it will be dissent up if you get the second one. And the third one is reduction in industrial efficiency. So you want to avoid these. Now, is this realistic? We are presuming, incorrectly of course, but presuming this is, these ICs are going toward military production in one facet or another. Now, of course, there is also civilian, consumer goods as part of this, but there is not a good way to measure this. What's going to the consumer goods versus going to industry. But what triggered Oh My God, or OMG, or however you want to say his name, was that one or more players, just like up into 39 or something, just purely was spamming ICs. Pure spamming ICs, doing absolutely nothing else. And then able in the last 6 months or so with all of his ICs, 6 months to a year, just build some overwhelming army and keep going. And so it was sort of an exploit closing. But there is some, beyond exploit closing, there is some real world history and economics behind it. I know I've had discussions, and I'm blanking on the name for the World Ablaze mod, about how I disagree with their economic progressions for worse and worse economies for Germany in Hearts of Iron 4 mod. And not that he's entirely wrong, I just think they are, how do I put this? They're right over the midterm or long term, but the effects, they're overdoing some of the effects. And his are much not are they are what am I looking for? His effects are much more immediate, and his, well, I don't know if more immediate, but his effects start at lower thresholds. That's what I should say. And these sort of grow. He does have other mitigating things that reduce them, but still. Germany, studying Germany at this time, 36 to 1840, and studying generally in economic. There are several things going on. Just trying to organize my thoughts here. No, I didn't make a bunch of notes other than this. We can see in, like, the case of current day U.S. Politics and economics, where the government is paying people not to work because they want to keep them, initially keep them from getting sick, going to work and getting sick. Now they keep paying them so that they keep supporting the party in power. I do believe that is a major element of it. So that there are significant inflationary elements, because the government is just printing and paying these people not to work. Where this is a similar case, but they're paying people to work, but they're doing work that doesn't have a corresponding, during peacetime, economic benefit. So the Romans used to, in the past, one of the ways that they funded their military was through conquest and plunder, including slaves and whatnot. That was an economic benefit to the system. We can talk about economic benefits of conquest and plunder, and there most assuredly was during World War II. The Germans did it. The Soviets did it to Germany. So yeah, but I don't know if the return on investment, the ROI, is good. Meaning all the money you spend to go in and conquer, do you get better return out of them? But in peacetime, the tanks are just sitting there. You don't. If the government is funding the production of toasters and radios, I know they did so with radios, the German government, and then so all these employees are making money making toasters and radios, but they can go out and buy those toasters and radios. So it can actually be a government, a state-owned enterprise that actually makes money. Okay. Of course, you can make tanks and sell them to another government and make money. I mean, that is, and they did that. Many nations did that. They do that today. So it can be a moneymaker, but that's not what we're talking about, selling off tanks. So, and I guess a good way to is if the government pays a bunch of people, to build a bridge over a river where there's only like a ferry crossing. Build a bridge over the river with using local materials. So cut down some local trees, make some local cement, whatever it is, and have a bridge there. The return to the government over time, let's say 5-10 years, can actually pay for it through without raising taxes, but with more economic activity. Say getting across that river opens up more economic activity, which is taxable, and so you can actually have your return on money on because they also say, and we also talk about in modern infrastructure. The current government is in the U.S. is doing infrastructure investment. They always call it investments, infrastructure investment. But of course, to them, infrastructure is everything. Is school books, is anything the government is spending on is infrastructure, just because they find a buzzword that people do it. But once you've built that bridge, to pay them to build a second and third and fourth bridge over the same river, just right next to each other, just to keep the workers employed, as you can see, does not. I mean, obviously, if one bridge is fully occupied and they're waiting to get wagons or trucks across that bridge, a second bridge would help alleviate traffic. But we're presuming that the bridge fully utilizes its traffic. Building a second, third, and fourth bridge does not help in the same spot economic activity. It becomes just spending to keep people employed for various reasons to do so, as I mentioned before. So some level of it that doesn't have a direct or some level of it does have a direct return to the government coffers that they've spent the money. Now, if it takes 4 months to build a bridge, and you build 4 bridges, you spend that money. I don't know that the local economy, because the downside problem is, if the government is either not bringing in money through taxes and is just printing the money, you get the guy who sells the beer, you get eventually inflationary pushes, because the guys that are building the bridges have lots of money to buy beer, but there is no one out there growing the hops or whatever and fermenting it and going through the process. So there isn't necessarily any additional beer in the local economy for the workers to spend their money on. And so now, the same amount of beer, 4 times as much money in the economy, or twice, or however it would work out. I know it's over time and whatever, but more money in the economy. So the price of beer is going to go up because, hey, I can afford 3 glasses instead of 1 glass of beer after, or pint, or however you want to measure this, after work. Well, yeah, okay, the first 2, 3, 4 days, everyone can buy their 3 or 4 pints of beer. But then the beer seller is going to go, I don't have any more beer. I mean, we're making more and we'll get more tomorrow, but we don't have extra beer. And so once they get more, well, I'll pay twice as much for my beer because of shortages. So economic. Okay. So you get this. So this is talking about the reason these are here, not just as an exploit for exploit control for gain, but are dealing with the idea that these workers here, we see 2 of them pictured here, are building something that they don't go out and buy. Okay, they don't go out and buy a Stimgeschütz because they've always wanted one. Or even if it's something more simple like rifle or ammunition for the rifle, they're cranking out rifles. They're not then, oh well, I get to go to my local gun store and buy one of the rifles that I make in the factory. No. So they now have money that even if the government is actually balancing the books on it, is spending money on things that then, and in a large scale, that these guys here now have money to dump into the economy, and all the workers downstream, the guys who are making the steel, the guys who are mining the iron, mining the coal, the railway worker who moves the trains, all the people through this economy of this Stimgeschütz, from raw materials to this finished product, the people who are making the paint, all of these people now have money in their pockets. And all the economic activity that they did to get that Stimgeschütz made, none of it is something that they get to go and invest in. Meaning that they get a piece of. Like, again, if they were making toasters, and if they were painted toasters, the guy who made the paint, makes money to paint the toaster or whatever. And so he can then go out and spend some of his money on toasters and radios and other economic goods. And so that's a healthy economy flowing. Now, I really like, I watch some, not all, of TIK's videos, and he talks about, he's very much into markets and whatnot. And I mostly agree with what he says. I don't want to try to make it out that I don't, but 100% agrees. And he's often why Hitler had to start the war in 1939 and whatnot. I disagree with some of that. I do not put immediate, meaning now or in the next 5 years, economic motive for what Hitler does and why Hitler does things. He definitely saw and thought, Hitler, that is, people who were going to be successful in the world were going to be those with empires, and they needed to have a strong enough economic base, often expressed as Lebensraum, for, my understanding, if the big island of Hawaii was flat and every human got on that island and just stood there, they would all fit relatively comfortably with, a decent amount of elbow room. So, and that doesn't mean they could all lay down. They could just all stand or something. That may not be true. But we could fit all of humanity onto sort of the big island of Hawaii with modern technology, I do believe, with apartment buildings and whatnot, and just turn that into sort of, a sort of super Hong Kong kind of density. So you don't actually need it for living room. You need it for agriculture and mining and all of those kinds of things. You need the resources to do what you set up. And again, here's more modern. I know this is trying to keep this short. I may make a separate video. The people that talk about overpopulation, Malthus was wrong. So long as we have energy, and of course, the modern thought is energy is bad, but as long as we have good enough cheap energy, and we can do so with nuclear power, and once we get fusion power going in a practical sense, we'll have enough energy. We can feed huge amounts of population, and I mean, like, I don't know, 10 times the population of current Earth or something, because what we can do is we can build multi-story structures that then we can have growing food on each of the levels of structures, and have artificial lighting coming in that's paid for by, for the, like nuclear energy. And so that we can have, multi-story high rises that just grow food. Okay, people, we can feed huge numbers of people now. It'll take a lot of effort, but we can do so. The technology is there. It's the don't know how to categorize it. It's the people who want to use catastrophes or possible catastrophe situations as being to control human behavior, that want to scare you to things, right? So just trying to think where I should go here from now. So during the time scale of the Third Reich had some inflationary pressures on it, most assuredly, prior to the starting of the war. That's what I'm considering. Prior to the start of the war, had some inflationary pressures, and had two elements of economy going: internal economies within the Reich and import-export economies. And TIK talked about how rubber and getting rubber allocation, basically tires, and this is in pre-war Germany, was very bad, and that unless you like turned in a old set of tires, it was, I gather, very difficult to get new tires for a vehicle because they would recycle the tires if you turn them in. But companies needed additional spare tires and not purely rotational things. So they would actually buy, according to him, and I'm not disbelieving him, I don't know if this was common or uncommon, but people that got around it would actually buy trucks just to get the tires off the truck, to keep theirs. And so not to have, instead of having 10 trucks, they've got 15 trucks operating. Now they just go buy 5 more trucks to keep the 10 trucks they need operating with the tires or something. That's my understanding of what he was saying in one of the videos. And I'm not doubting that happened. And I know that there was serious problems with things because rubber is primarily, before the war, an import item. And they're desperately working to make synthetic rubbers, of course. And even once they get that going, there's still only so much synthetic rubber they're making at any one moment. But they are very much working for that. And so that's the German problem economically, was primarily dealing with things they needed to import. Things that were done in the domestic economy were not, and that would be things like paying workers to make items, things like paying soldiers, sailors. Germany was a food importer, obviously, but domestic food they didn't need to import, obviously. Their domestic production. So their internal economy, I would rate as reasonably good in relations to armaments production. TIK talked about, the coal thief in one of his videos, in which it really wasn't anyone stealing or losing coal, it was just mismanagement of the railroads. So there were economic problems, but it wasn't due to armaments production or things that we're dealing with in Hearts of Iron, in my opinion, so long as it is kept to a rational level. Okay. Which this, to me, is a rational level if you look at it. So if you have, if you keep your economy growing, but not faster or greater than this, you should not have any of the economic crisis. Things should work out fine for you. And once you get these, either go back to an earlier save or conquer Paris, London and Paris, or Moscow, Leningrad, Stalingrad. Remove it. Thank you for making it this far into the video. Really do appreciate it. See you next time for more historical gaming videos.